32. No, not 32. I ran out of ink this morning when I was printing it out, so I don't have my first page. We're going to be starting in 18. I know we're going to cover some same ground, but that's where we're going to start.
Yeah.
Are we on? Yeah. But we're going to cover some same ground because there's just a couple minor points I wanted to make that I didn't get to make last week. Let's go to God in prayer. Father, throughout your word, you have asked the people to follow you. From the very beginning, Adam and Eve, you asked them, you told them, you commanded them not to eat of the fruit. They did. You were the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You called the children of Israel out of Egypt, gave them the promised land. Father, you call us to be your people, to be your children. And throughout the history, ultimately you want us to obey your word, to be obedient to your commands, to love you, and to worship and praise you. Father, this morning as we continue to look at Jesus and his teachings and his life, help us to mold our life around his, to be in his image, to look like him, and everything we say and do is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Has anybody ever had to hire people? Were you in a position where you hired employees? Okay. Good morning, Jay. Good to see you, brother. Good morning. How's it going today?
Trying to find my wife. She's spoke around here somewhere.
Well, she's not in here. I haven't seen her in here.
She's in the other room.
Okay, so just imagine you're going to hire somebody for whatever job that you might be doing or that you've done in the past. What would be some of the things that you would look for in a person that you would hire? Dependable. What was that? Respectful. Can you see these? Am I writing? Respectful. Now, I got a C average in spelling in school throughout my whole career, so if I misspell something up here,
I'll let you know.
thank you, Lisa. And I believe that you will. Honesty. Okay?
Work ethic.
Work ethic. What does that mean, Jay? You know what? I'm going to put that over on the other side. What does work ethic mean? Because some people might not know what a work ethic is. I've seen a few people that don't understand what work ethic is, right? So let's erase that. Okay.
Worker. Whether he wants to work.
Work ethic.
Now, works hard.
Okay.
Hard work.
Hard worker. So
Friendly.
what was that, Sue?
Friendly.
Friendly. Is that IE or EI? Are you sure?
Ryan.
That's right. ELY.
How come I want to say it I before E except after C? It's right. Okay.
Somebody that shows up on time. And is at work more times than not.
Not tardy.
Yeah.
Not tardy. And, okay, and we'll put timely there. Just show up, right? Show up for work.
How about his appearance?
Appearance?
Whether he's neat and clean or if he's just thrown together like some ball.
Skills.
Is that correct? Appearance?
You need to put it
DNA in there.
between the E and the R.
Really?
There you go.
Hey, I was serious. I don't like okay. I'm a C average.
Skills.
Skills. Okay, so if you're hiring somebody to dig a ditch, they better know what a shovel looks like, right? Okay.
And whether he's a know-it-all or not.
And is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's a bad thing.
I know it all.
Somebody who runs their mouth faster than they can.
So you don't want somebody that's a know-it-all.
I take more people out of my truck for that reason.
I'm gonna put not arrogant.
Arrogant.
Not arrogant. You don't want somebody that's arrogant,
Yes.
okay?
That's what the whole thing is.
Okay. Because these are things we're looking for. Man, you guys are coming up. And I said not arrogant, and then I don't know how to spell arrogant.
G-A-N-T.
Is there an O in there somewhere?
A.
Arrogant?
That's right.
Okay. Is that how you spell arrogant?
Arrow.
O instead of an A.
It's an O?
I can't read what you wrote, but it looks like
Not Charlie.
I didn't write a name there, I just underlined it. Gotta pick on you, brother. These are things that, if you're gonna hire somebody, what are you looking for? Okay. Well, that's a good enough list.
Sorry, that sounded rude when I just, I pieced that together. Listening.
And we'll refer to this in a little bit. Matthew 9, starting in verse 18. While he was saying these things to them, a synagogue official came and bowed down before him and said, "My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her and she will live." Jesus got up and began to follow him, and so did his disciples. And a woman who had been suffering from a hemorrhage for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak. For she was saying to herself, "If I only touch his garment, I will get well." But Jesus, turning and seeing her, said, "Daughter, take courage, your faith has made you well." At once the woman was made well. And when Jesus came into the official's house and saw the flute players and the crowd in noisy disorder, he said, "Leave, for the girl has not died, but is asleep." And they began laughing at him, but when the crowd had been sent out, he entered and took her by the hand, and the girl got up. This news spread throughout all the land. Jesus went on from there. 2 blind men followed him, crying out, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." When he entered the house, the blind men came up to him, and Jesus said to him, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" And they said to him, "Yes, Lord." Then he touched their eyes, saying, "It shall be done to you according to your faith." And their eyes were opened, and Jesus sternly warned them, "See that no one knows about this." But they went out and spread the news about him throughout the land. How much courage would it take to approach Jesus? Okay, we talked last week about the crowds that were around him. We remember the house where they lowered the paralytic in. It was packed, couldn't even get in the house, so they had to go down through the roof. We see the story of the lady with the bleeding struggle that she had, that when she touched Jesus, he said, and this is in one of the other Gospels, he said, "Who touched me?" And the disciples are going, "Really? You know, you're going to ask who touched you with all these people around you?" How much courage would it take to approach Jesus to ask Jesus, hey, I'm blind. I have faith that you're going to heal me. How much courage would it take to approach him and say, my daughter has died, and I know that you can heal her. Please come. Sam?
Well, I think in many of these instances, rather than courage, it took desperation. They thought he was their last hope, and they were going to grasp it when they could. Amen.
Okay?
Desperation starts to do away with things like what is appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we see that with the woman, right? In one of the other Gospels, it talks about she had spent all her money. Dan, did you have a comment before we go on? Okay. She had spent all her money, went to all these doctors. And Emma, as I'm looking at you, Brother Jay, you've been to a lot of different doctors and went through a lot of different tests to try to help you with the situation you're in. And so if Jesus was here and you heard he could heal you, it probably wouldn't take a whole lot of courage to go to him, would it? More out of, I've heard this guy can heal people. I'm going to go to him. Yeah. So spiritually speaking, people are kind of the same way. As long as things are going well, do I really need Jesus? Oftentimes it's when they come to a point of desperation in their life that they don't have control anymore.
Amen.
Yeah. When they turn to Jesus. And hopefully it's not that way for us, that we continue to turn to him. Whether things are going well for us or not. Oftentimes we approach God when it's out of our hands. I can handle this. I can do all these things until there comes a point where, okay, I can't handle it. Then I go to God. And I don't think God wants us to be that way. Go ahead, Nathan.
I have a question for you. Notice when we start talking to people about Jesus, we teach people about Jesus, and there are so often where it's the desperate people that listen. It's the desperate people that come to church and, start to want to do studies and things like this. And it seems like a pretty big trend that the vast majority of them, once the church has helped them, once their life is starting to get back under control, they're kind of done with it. Is that just the nature of the world versus God, or is that a failure in our instruction? Is that a failure in us to teach them what that relationship is supposed to be?
Mr. Bruns.
I think it's a human thing. I do it. As long as things are going okay, you don't call for God's help. Everything. So I don't know. I know what you're talking about, Nate, but then again, how often do we do the same thing? It's not like we're not coming or anything. You stop relying on him to do everything.
I don't know. I've experienced that.
Well,
No,
there's a
yeah.
balance
That's
between
why I'm struggling.
being able to do something for yourself that God gives you the ability to do and asking for yourself. How do you, that's that tough thing. When you come to the conclusion that you can't do it, how many times do you try before you ask for help?
How many times do you try before you make that assessment? The idea, that's a great question.
I'm really sorry. This is just it's different for me. This is not what I've experienced in my relationship with God. So I'm interested. Do you guys see it like a human relationship where God is there and God is not there? You ask him when you want him to do something? Like that's new to me. I'm interested in it. That's not how I've experienced it.
Every day, start my day, I talk to God. Every day. That's just who I am. Here's the stories, and we see these people are desperate. and they're coming to Jesus because out of their desperation. We don't have a lot of information on where they ended up at the end of their life. I would hope that the woman that was healed would say, "Man, this is pretty special." I would hope that 2 weeks later she said, "Well, now that I'm healed, I'm doing okay, and I don't need this guy in my life anymore." For me, it's a daily conversation with God.
I guess to me, it's like an ongoing dialogue.
Yeah.
All day. And that's how it's been since day one. So hearing you guys talk about it from a different perspective.
Well, and your question earlier was, we help people, and I think there's a concept in the world that Christians are, that's who they are. They're very giving, and they're helpful. And then your question was, so they get back on their feet, and then it's like, okay, that connection that we had, I don't need that anymore. Hopefully, I'll get to you in a second, Gilbert. Hopefully, in that connection, somewhere they get a faith, that they do develop a faith from that. That's our hope, and I have seen that happen in people's lives. There's a brother sitting right in there in this auditorium that he's growing leaps and bounds spiritually.
I appreciate it. 'Cause
Yeah.
I get very discouraged and I never understood. For me, it's always felt like God is here all the time, every single second. And me not talking to Him doesn't change that. So the option to just go to Him when I need something is silly because it's like, doing a project with your friend. He's right here. You gotta wait until I'm in desperate need before I say, "Hey, can you grab me that wrench?" That would be silly. But you guys are explaining, seeing your relationship with God like He's here when you talk to Him. And so there's that opportunity to not go in. And I appreciate that explanation because that's new.
Okay. I'll get you in a second, Bailey. Gilbert's had his hand up for a while.
The idea of all these different perspectives is, this is the way everybody's got this opinion, but I don't think it's unusual for people to be more asking if they're more desperate. But when you talk about my relationship, or when the brother here talks about that constant relationship because you know He's in your heart, it makes me feel like, well, we got a project going on here. We have to work on the project of tuning up our, I'm going to say frequency, to be more aligned with the Father's expectations about, following the Word. So when I'm reacting, saying, hey, I liked how Dan put it, how many different things you can try when you're doing a project that you're still working on, you're still trying to learn. It makes sense to try different things. And trying different things doesn't mean you're all of a sudden black and white. I'm now desperate, I'm going to ask for something. Or I'm constantly in conversation. I think as you are teaching us different tools, different measuring technique, different ways to align ourselves better, makes me think, well, this is like this great process, a great journey of being able to have these public Bible studies, to be able to learn about different ways we can tune up our path, our walk. And that is encouraging. But all those different things make for the whole experience more enjoyable.
Sorry.
No, you're doing well. Full disclosure, by the way, when I commented that every day I get up and talk to God, it hasn't always been that way in my life. When I was younger, it was pretty much everything revolved around me, and then, something would happen in my life, relationship, or, I'd ask God to work in this certain area. I haven't always been that way. I've matured in my walk, and that's one of the things that we are trying to do, right? Grow, mature.
I think for me, my biggest struggle has been reminding myself that I'm not doing it by myself. Because it's like, when I try to remember, like, we're supposed to have, family prayer or something like that, I'll completely forget because it's like, my conversation never ended. So why, like, it never occurs to me, like, we need to stop and have this conversation. It's like, I'm still talking to it. Why would I start another conversation? So that's my biggest struggle with prayer life, is inviting people into it.
Brother Sam?
My spiritual path has been, I've been on and off. Over the years, I think one of the things that helped me the most was watching Fiddler on the Road, and watch Tebiardi. He's just walking down the street. He's talking to God. And I started doing that, and I did that for many, many years, but I've gotten to the point, and I'm sorry that I've gotten there. Satan has made it feel so comfortable, so common, that I forget to talk to him. I mean, I have something I'd like to talk to him about, and then I think to him, for some reason in the back of my mind, I'll talk to him later. He's right here. I can talk to him now. I've always felt that way, and I need to get back into talking to him more. It's one of those things that, Satan's just walking across me. He's trying to take me.
Yeah. It ends up in 31 that this news about Jesus is getting spread around the land. And this would be something that, when he starts healing people, that would be some real newsworthy stuff, right? And people are hearing about him.
Why do you think that Jesus says not to tell anybody, don't tell anybody, or don't let this out? That this has been a mystery in my mind. Why does he tell people this? And yet people go out and tell their friends, their neighbors, this man has healed me. I'm healed from the blind now. This lady is healed from her bleeding and whatever.
I don't know for every instance why he did that. There are some instances that he says it's not my time yet.
Why do we say don't tell somebody? If we do something different, then I do something different than what you do, but it turns, we're working on the same project, but it came out the same way as what you did. Why don't tell anybody I did took this shortcut?
I don't have the answer to that, brother.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
the same difference, right?
Yeah. I do know that he told some people not to say anything, and it was because it wasn't his time yet. He wasn't ready to be fully revealed. And I know that didn't answer your question, and I don't have an answer to that. So, as they were going out, a mute demon-possessed man was brought to him. After the demon was cast out, the mute man spoke, and the crowds were amazed and were saying, "Nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel." But the Pharisees were saying, "He casts out the demons by the ruler of the demons." And so obviously the Pharisees were not desperate. They were pretty comfortable in their spiritual lives, and said that Satan's doing this, which logically makes no sense at all. If somebody's on your team, you don't kick them off, right?
But isn't that how Jesus responded?
Yeah.
There's one of those times where if you're actually reading this, there's no way that happened.
Yeah.
Like the way he responds to him, like essentially carries much. That's the dumbest thing you could have said to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Beelzebub, he says Beelzebub was not going to cast out Beelzebub. Jesus was going through all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness. And here just again, we see that he's not only concerned about their physical well-being, but their spiritual too. He's teaching them the gospel. He's teaching them about God. The kingdom of heaven is close, he says. Seeing the people, he felt compassion for them, because they were distressed and dispirited like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore beseech the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into the harvest." Compassion goes a long way with people. Empathy. And I've been telling people that one of the things that I gained I recently had my ankle replaced, for those of you who may not know that. And I was sitting in a lazy boy recliner for 6 weeks. For the first few weeks, I couldn't take care of myself. I depended on my wife to feed me. I needed something to drink. But the only thing I could do is get up and go use the restroom. And I'm thinking to myself, there are people that, because I see light at the end of tunnels. I've just got to last 6 weeks, and I can get up and I'm going to start walking. Eventually, I'm going to be to the point where I'm at today. I knew that. There are people in this life that are not going to get better. They're in nursing homes or wherever, and they have to have constant care. They can't take care of themselves. And I have a lot more empathy for people who are dealing with physical struggles in their life, having gone through that. It says Jesus had compassion on people. I mean, that's a very important tool. Maybe tool is not the right word. That would be something that we would do well to have, is have compassion with people. Yeah. And so no matter what they needed, whether it be a spiritual or physical, he was taking care of their needs. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore, beseech the Lord. Pray to the Lord. Would that be beseeching the Lord? Asking the Lord of the harvest to send out workers. As long as that worker's not me, right? Obviously, there's some work to be done. I hope somebody does it. Huh? But we're talking about a different kind of harvest here. You know that. You know he's talking about a different kind of harvest. So chapter 10, Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out, to heal every kind of disease and every kind of sickness. Now the names of the 12 apostles are these. The first, Simon, who is called Peter, Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James the son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. What is the significance of the number 12 or calling 12? And so picture this. He's got all these disciples around him, and he chooses 12 out of the group of people. He chooses 12, and then we just read their names. And the significance that I get from the number 12 is that there were 12 tribes of Israel, and it seems like it connects with that. And then in Revelation, it talks about the number 12 and the 12 apostles and some of the things that they're going to have authority over there. Yes?
I don't remember who it was or what class it was in, but they were talking about this 12. And if memory serves, it's the ideal number that one man can teach.
We're over 12, so would a few of you leave?
Sure.
I'm trying. Sometimes my sense of humor comes across wrong. I'm sorry if that came across wrong.
That's all of psychology and sociology have both taught us that that's essentially once you get past that number, the teaching has to change to fit the dynamic. You don't, once you get past 12, you don't get the intimate lessons that you would with a bigger class.
Okay. Did you say something, Edward?
Yeah, I'm stuck in my seat. Okay, got it.
Oh, you're not going to be leaving anytime soon. Okay.
Last one.
Jesus gave them authority to do the things that he had done. One of the things that it was interesting to me was to raise the dead.
It's later when they come back and tell them.
Yeah, verse 8. Okay. I knew it was in there somewhere because it really stuck out to me. The fact that they had authority to raise the dead.
Why don't we see that?
Huh?
Why do you think, if he gave them that authority, why don't we see any stories in Scripture about that?
God decided that we didn't need to hear those. All Scripture is inspired by God.
Well,
we don't need to know that, I guess.
we do see some apostles doing it in Acts. But not, not
yeah.
during Jesus' ministry.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Now, don't be hanging me up on some of these kind of questions, Nathan. I'm charging on here. Okay. What gifts did these men have to qualify them to become an apostle?
Like we got a list there over your shoulder.
Well, were they the most educated?
Oh, no.
No, they were ordinary men, fishermen, tax collector. So he could choose whoever he wanted.
Most all blue collar workers.
Okay.
Come follow me, I'll make you fishers of men.
Okay. Were they wealthy?
No.
We don't have any indication that they came from wealth. There might be an argument that Matthew had more money than other people, but
John and James were from a fairly wealthy fishing family. They had servants that helped them fishing, and they hired Peter and Andrew.
okay.
We know that they had money in their family, but they weren't one percenters by any stretch of the imagination. They had a successful business, but they were still working class.
Could have they been wealthy? Absolutely. Okay. But we don't see that they were. And bear with me here, okay? Because we're heading. I'm heading the direction. I'm trying to get there. Okay. Did Dan have a question? Did you have a?
They got up every day, went to work.
Yeah.
That's the guy I want to work for me.
Yeah. You're jumping. We're getting to that.
All that stuff on the list.
Yes.
If they don't do it when they get there, then there's no sense. All that other stuff doesn't mean anything.
That's right. So, and were the apostles this? Were they arrogant? What about John and James? Yeah, the sons of thunders. Mom says, "Hey, I want you to put one on your right and one on your left." But Jesus says, "I don't have that authority to do that." What about their appearance? John the Baptist walked around with a goat. What did he have for a belt? Camel hair. Yeah. Did they show up?
Yes.
Were they friendly? Not tardy? And I'm not sure why that's underlined. I can't remember why that's underlined. Were they honest, respectful, dependable? But over here, what about work ethic?
So that'll work.
So, and I'm bringing this up. Here's where I want to head with this. And each one of us has to, I'm not evaluating anybody in here. You have to evaluate yourself on this, okay? So, when we think of the spiritual things, we think of faith, and we talked about spiritual disciplines early in Matthew, right? Fasting and prayer and those things. So what if I'm all these? Well, I'm very spiritual. But you know what? When it comes to work, I don't do a whole lot. I kind of sit around. You know, I go to work delivering mail, and I'm really friendly. I'm respectful to the supervisors. I'm dependable. I get there on time. You know, my appearance, you know, I shower and I got a uniform on. I don't think I'm arrogant, you know, but I don't deliver any mail. How long am I going to be worth anything to the post office?
Maybe 2 days.
Right.
Or worse, you drop it off on the ground because you're too lazy to open it.
Okay. Jesus sent 12 out. And he gave them work to do. It wasn't that they were in like monks, that they were in some castle somewhere and every day they got up and they prayed and they hum all day long. You know. The apostles worked, didn't they? They had work to do. And even after Jesus died, was resurrected, and went to heaven, there was a work for them to do. Was Paul a worker for the Lord? Was there work for him to do? Absolutely. So what gifts do you need to possess to be a disciple? You want to be a disciple of Jesus. What gifts do you have to have? Do you have to be charismatic? Oops. Sorry, I keep flipping back and forth. Do you have to be well educated? Do you have to be wealthy? What does it take to be a disciple of Jesus? What gifts do you need to be a worker who harvests? I'm telling you, the worker, when Jesus says pray for workers for the harvest, in my mind often when I was younger, that's always somebody else. Boy, that's right. Let's pray so that people can go evangelize, that people can bring other people to the Lord. Do you think maybe Jesus was talking to his disciples too? Yeah, pray for workers, but you know, this is some of the work that you're going to need to do. And he sends them out, and they do it. So what gifts do you need to be a worker who harvests?
You've been made sufficient for all good works the Lord has set before you.
Thank you.
Where's that at?
I quoted it because I don't remember.
Say that again.
You have been made sufficient for all good works that the Lord has set before you.
Okay.
I don't even think that's my regular translation.
If somebody can find that, Ephesians 6:12.
That was one of the first memory verses that Wayne Horton gave me as a
2 Corinthians 8:9. Yes, I
Yeah. That's pretty impressive. Wayne Horton, that's 1985, buddy. 2 Corinthians 8:12.
8:9, I think it said.
8:9.
Let's see. I didn't Google it. 9:8. It stood on my head one day.
And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that always having all sufficiency in everything, you may have an abundance for every good deed. As it is written, he scattered abroad, he gave to the poor, his righteousness endures forever. Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, do your work heartily, as for the Lord rather than for men. And just that statement itself, whatever you do, do your work heartily as for the Lord rather than for men. So it infers that you're going to work heartily for the Lord. That that's just who you are. And as you are working heartily for the Lord, you do that for whoever you're employed by. Does that make sense? Because if you don't work heartily for the Lord, then you're not going to work heartily for the man, for your employer. So just by inference, it indicates that we are working hard for the Lord.
Here's the point I'm trying to make, and I think you know where I'm at. We can't sit and feel it be adequate enough to just be spiritually filled by prayer, by talking to God, coming together, worshiping and singing to God, just being spiritually filled. There is a work for us to do. Jesus said that. There's a harvest out there. Pray for some workers so we can harvest it. He gave his disciples a job to do and then sent them out to do it. These 12 Jesus sent out after instructing them. Do not go in the way of the Gentiles, and do not enter any city of the Samaritans, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Go to the house of Israel first. And we see later on that after he ascended, that his mission for his disciples was also to preach to the Gentiles, that they would be part of God's family. But in this instance, Jesus says, you go to the house of the Israelites first, the Jews first. They need to hear this message. Tell them that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. He says, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Freely you received, freely give. Do not acquire gold or silver or copper for your money belts, or a bag for your journey, or even 2 coats or sandals or a staff, but the worker is worthy of his support. He tells them to raise the dead. And again, I'm assuming that happened. I mean, if he told them to go do that happened at this time. And again, if they have that, if they see that, they do that, they have that power to do that. Why didn't they have a better understanding when Jesus was hanging on the cross, or when he was going through what he's going through, that it was going to be okay? How about we as Christians? Our hope is resurrection from the dead, right? That's what we are hoping in. Are we afraid of death? Do we fear dying? No, you don't have to answer that. These are just questions I'm tossing out there, okay? Jesus is telling them to put into practice what I taught, or what he taught, not me, what he taught. Not to worry about what you will wear, eat, not laying up treasures on earth. If you remember Matthew 6, don't worry about what you're going to eat or you're going to drink. God takes care of the birds of the air. Don't worry about what you're going to wear. Look at the flowers. He dresses them, and they're beautiful. He cares more about you than he does them. So he's teaching them that. Don't acquire gold or silver, copper for your money belts, or even 2 coats or sandals or staff. The worker is worthy of his support. So he's saying, you need to go out and do the things that I'm telling you to do. Do the work, and you're going to get taken care of. Is there any questions, by the way, or comments? I'm moving pretty quick. I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there to you. I know you're thinking, and that's a good thing. Whatever city or village you enter, inquire who is worthy in it, and stay at his house until you leave that city. As you enter the house, give it your greeting. If the house is worthy, give it your blessing of peace. But if it is not worthy, take back your blessing of peace. Whoever does not receive you or heed your words as you go out of that house or that city, shake the dust off your feet. Truly I say to you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. Now remember who they're going to. He says, go to the house of Israel. Israel should know who God is. They are God's nation. He brought them out of Egypt. They have the history. They should know who God is. And they should be aware of the things that Jesus is doing is that he's the Messiah. And so he's saying, basically, if they don't want to hear what you're saying, it's going to be more tolerable than it'd be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah than that city. And we know what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. They were totally destroyed. But that doesn't seem to be a loving God. And that was just a facetious statement. Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves, so be shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves. But be aware of men, for they will hand you over to the courts and scourge you in their synagogues, and you will even be brought before governors and kings for my sake, as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles. But when they hand you over, do not worry about how or what you are to say, for it will be given you in that hour what you are to say. For it is not you who speak, but it is the Spirit of your Father who speaks in you. Shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves. What does that mean? Shrewd as a serpent. I guess the serpent that we know of is the devil, right? He was a serpent. So was he shrewd? Because what does it mean to be shrewd as a serpent? I don't know that snakes are real shrewd. Are they naturally shrewd? Okay. Tell me how a snake, because I don't know anything about snakes. Anybody in here have a pet snake? Can you tell me how?
They're pretty watchful of everything.
Okay.
Right? So like a snake, whether it's pet or wild, it doesn't really matter. It takes time to assess everything, whether it's a threat or not. A snake will hide, even if it knows it's stronger than whatever's facing it.
Okay.
It never just goes out boldly. It will always try to attack from an angle or try to attack from an element of surprise.
Okay.
Right? So it assesses every situation. And I think that's kind of what he's saying. Be aware. Know who you're dealing with. Be prepared. People are going to try to catch you up. People are going to try to do you wrong and things like that. You need to be watchful of that.
So wisdom and shrewdness have qualities, but some of the qualities of shrewdness that the snake possesses can also be found in a wise person, like being observant or being not being hasty.
Well, the other thing is if you look at like what we would call a shrewd person, you normally think of like a shrewd businessman. This is somebody who's always looking for opportunity. He's always looking for the next business opportunity, the next way to make money. And I think we're called to do the same thing as Christians. We're to be looking for the next opportunity.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. Thank you for that. I think of when Paul, it's in Acts, and I can't remember who exactly he was in front of, but the Jews wanted to take him and try him and basically kill him. And he says, I appeal to Caesar. And it got him out of that situation. But that night they took him to Felix, and he ended up in Rome. He was being very shrewd at that time, I'm thinking. And I'm thinking God was helping him out with that too. And we see, I don't know about the disciples themselves, but we do see Paul in front of governors and kings spreading the message. We do see that he was scourged, and some of the historical accounts of the other disciples that they were also. We don't have it in there, but historically speaking, there are accounts of the disciples being beaten and whipped and ultimately martyred for their faith.
Shrewd as serpent and innocent as doves. He's saying, I'm sending you in, it's going to be tough out there. If we go out and start preaching about Jesus in the world, you just go down the street and start, is it going to be difficult? Yeah. You know, I work at the store in Traer, and I try to talk to some of the other co-workers, and their thought process of who God is just amazes me. It's like, well, you know, one of the typical responses that you have heard, well, if there's a loving God, why are there wars? And these wars are killing innocent children. You know, if there's a loving God, he wouldn't allow this to happen. You know, so I don't believe in God. You know, so you try to work through those things. Yeah, I've heard all kinds of, I don't believe in God because of this, that, or the other. And sometimes it's even, well, because Christians are a bunch of hypocrites. They try to teach you that you can't do this, you can't do that, and then they go do it themselves. You know, a bunch of hypocrites. And so
That's a fact.
it is a fact. Well, yeah,
That's what you deal with most, you know. I had a guy at work say that the Bible's a great book, all kinds of neat stories in there.
yeah,
Which, that part's true, but where's good?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's deeper than just great stories.
I think people get to on some of that is all these things that they complain about is out of their control anyway. I mean, limited, you can't fix it. You know, one person can't fix all the world's problems. You know, you get up in the morning, you're gonna stop every war on whatever you know.
No.
So I think part of it's kind of they're just tired of not being able to do it. But that's trying to do it and fix it for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of reach that idea that they can't do it on their own, but who can fix it?
But we see the results of immorality and don't make the connection to the actual immorality. You know, look out at the world, oh, there's wars, children die, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, that's because people are hateful and people are vengeful. And that's because people lack compassion. That's because, you know, and you can easily point at all of the immorality of man that leads to that.
Yeah.
But your average person doesn't make that connection.
Right. And you go to some scripture where it says, yeah, this is the deeds of the flesh and these are the deeds of the spirit. And obviously the things that are happening are deeds of the flesh. And yes, innocent people are getting hurt because of that. But, well, hopefully I've given you some things to think about today, to contemplate. Thank you for your attention, your time, your comments. We'll be picking up in Matthew 10 next week. Thank you.